Okay, in one of our previous videos, we discussed this and we called it a major 7 chord. Anytime you stack a note after that, this is a major 9, a major 11, a major 13. So all of the chords, it's all about this half step. If you take a note, go up an octave and come down a half step, this note is more likely to be with a major chord. You can do it with a minor chord, and you can do it with some chords with flat 5s and sharp notes. Okay, but let's just stay with some basics here. Okay, so up an octave, down a half step, creates a major 7 chord. This chord is a minor 7 chord. We have a minor chord with a major chord stacked together. Okay, D minor 7 in the key of C. So this is the 2 chord. The 3 chord is a minor chord with a major chord stacked on top. So all the chords we've talked about, so major 7s are cool because it's major chord plus or a major triad, I should specify, and a minor triad stacked on top of each other to create a major 7. A minor 7 is created by a minor triad with a major triad stacked on top of it. Okay, so the colors are all pretty because they're all majors and minors. Major, minor, major. With the D chord, minor, major, minor. With the E chord, minor, major, and back to minor. When we get to the F chord, we have that same. We have a major 7 because if I go up an octave, come down a half step, and I have a major chord, F major, plus an A minor triad stacked with each other to create this color. Or if I looked at the intervals, major 3rd, minor 3rd, major 3rd. When we get to the G chord, here's where it all changes. When we get to the 5th chord, the dominant chord, okay, we have major, minor, minor. That's the diminished chord is created by minor and minor thirds mixed together. So major 3rd, minor 3rd, minor 3rd. Okay, and that wants to resolve. The half steps in the scale, this is in any key, the 7th note will fall to the 3rd, and the leading tone, the 7th note, will lead up to the tonic. No matter whether you're playing the diminished chord or you're sticking in the G7 chord, the G bass note, underneath of that. Okay? So the dominant 7 is special because it's the only chord, well, it's one of the chords that has that diminished sound inside of it. The A minor, the 6th chord, is kind of boring because we're right back to the minor triad stacked with a major on top of it. So this is a minor 7, is its definition. Okay, and then we have this half diminished chord, which basically functions, sounds like here's a G dominant 9. Okay, so here's a G dominant 7. Most times we just call it a G7, but its a real name in the old days was G dominant 7. It was too long to write. So people just say, hey, let's abbreviate that. Let's call it a G dom 7. And somebody's like, that's still too long to write. Let's just call it a G7. So whenever you see a chord with a number, the chord is assumed to be major, and the number, the 7 or the 9, is telling you it's a dominant chord. You have to write major or minor to be one of the other chord types that we discussed earlier. So here's a there's your G dominant 9, or without adding the 9, the extra color at the top, here's our B minor 7 flat 5, or B half diminished. And then it will come back to either C chord. Okay? So let's review. Major 7 for the 1, minor 7 for the 2, minor 7 for the 3, major 7 for the 4, dominant 7, minor 7, and then half diminished 7, and then back to our tonic chord. So the 2 chords that actually give the scale the color are either this one or this one. So you look back in classical history and you will see Bach, Beethoven playing the snot out of these 2 chords. That means playing them a lot, sorry, okay? And they're always doing that right before the end of the song. To make you hear that tonic note. Okay? So there are our chords. Note, in my opinion, first chord, kind of boring. It's the chord we're trying to land on. Boring, boring, boring. Ooh, interesting, that dominant 7 because the diminished. Boring chord. Ooh, interest because of that diminished chord. So the diminished chord is really, in my opinion, that one chord that screams, please get me back to the home chord, to the tonic chord. Please release me. Please let the tension go. So there are our colors in a major scale, okay? When we play any chord down the road, we can flat 5 a minor chord, take this minor 7 chord, flat 5 it, take this A minor, flat 5 it, just that easy, okay? Any dominant chord, we might sharp the 5. Okay, so it actually sounds like a blues note, doesn't it? So depending upon how it resolves, kind of makes it sound bluesy, although these chords were used a little bit in classical times. Okay, just not, we didn't use them in this direction. Okay, it wasn't until the 1900s with blues pianists and guitarists coming out that we took what had already been, chords that already existed, and we made them resolve in different directions and ways and made melodies resolve in different directions. So a major 7 could be moved into a major 7 with a flat 5 or a sharp 5. You could move a major 7 to a dominant 7 just that quick by changing its 7th. So since there are only 2 major 7 chords, the F chord and the 1 chord and the 4 chord, okay? Or if I take the G major, the G dominant 7, I can turn it into a G major 7 by taking the 7th and raising it up. And again, notice that half step makes it major. So F major 7, C major 7.